would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. He was born a slave, digging deep into the belly of Mars, told his sacrifice would build a better world, but everything was a lie. When they took everything from him, he didn't just rise, he became a weapon. Welcome to the summary of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Part 1. Slave. Darrow was just a boy when the society came for his father. The trial was a performance, the sentence predetermined. His father was hanged before a crowd, his death broadcast to remind the Reds of their place. Darrow didn't cry. His brother Kieran did, but Darrow stood still and silent. As custom demanded, the family pulled the legs of the condemned to hasten the end. Years later, Darrow works at the same mines that claimed his father. At 17, he is already a seasoned hell diver, one of the elite Reds who pilot claw drills deep beneath Mars' surface, harvesting helium-3 to terraform the planet for future generations. It's dangerous work, but he excels at it. Married to Io, a girl who waited for him rather than marry young like most Reds, Darrow holds tightly to hope that their sacrifice has meaning. When a potential gas pocket threatens their shift, Darrow's cousin Lauren urges him to ignore protocol and take the reading himself. The laurel, the reward given to the top-performing clan, could be within reach. Winning it would mean enough food to last, maybe even a future without hunger. For Io, for their people, Darrow takes the risk. After narrowly avoiding disaster in the mines, Darrow escapes the heat and barely frees himself from a snag in his suit. The results of their shift are clear. They finally outmined Gamma, the clan that always wins the laurel. But the celebration turns to caution. Dago, Gamma's helldiver, warns them, winning the numbers doesn't mean they'll win the laurel. The system doesn't always play fair. Back in the township of Lykos, the Reds find small ways to resist. Songs, dances, and stories whispered in the shadows. One dance, however, is forbidden. It's the one Darrow's father performed before his execution. Darrow and Io live in a cramped home with his extended family. Life is hard, but they endure. On the ever-present holocans, Sovereign Octavia Aulun broadcasts messages of loyalty and purpose. The Reds, she says, are pioneers, sacrificing for the dream of a habitable Mars. Someday, they'll be honored. But Io doesn't believe it, and Darrow is starting to wonder if she's right. The announcement of the quarterly laurel brings the whole colony together. Tensions are high. They believe this time it should be theirs. A recent bombing is blamed on a rebel group called the Son of Ares. Darrow dismisses them. He believes in hard work, not chaos. The future is earned and not taken. But when the laurel is awarded yet again to Gamma, despite the undeniable numbers, Darrow feels the truth settle in. The laurel was never about merit, it was about control. Io doesn't even flinch. She saw it coming. Later, Io leads Darrow to the Webbery, and through a forgotten ventilation shaft. What she shows him shakes him to his core. A hidden garden with real soil, plants, and flowers. It's a paradise they were told didn't exist. They make love beneath the stars, but it's not enough for Io. She's angry at the lies, at the injustice, at Darrow for still clinging to hope in a system designed to break them. You're a puppet, she tells him. You recite the lies they fed us. She believes he could be more. Someone people will follow. Someone who could lead their people to freedom. But Darrow isn't ready. Not yet. They argue. Still, they watch the sunrise together. Briefly united, unknowingly on the edge of tragedy. Darrow and Io are caught as they exit the Forbidden Garden. Ugly Dan and 3 Greys, known as Tin Pots, arrest them for trespassing. It's a crime punishable by flogging. Io urges Darrow to fight, but he doesn't. He submits, choosing obedience over resistance. He spends 3 days in a cell before a sympathetic tin pot named Bridge allows him out. Darrow expects to find Io preparing to receive her lashing, but her demeanor is far too calm. Her words feel like a goodbye. Then the lashing begins. Darrow takes his punishment, 48 strokes, each a crack of domination. Io follows, and after the 13th strike, she begins to sing. It's the forbidden song, a song punishable by death. A quiet, haunting melody of defiance that dares to rise. The arch-governor of Mars himself, Nero Augustus, watches from above. He challenges the crowd, daring others to join her. No one does. So she is sentenced to death. Before her execution, Io is offered a final word. She chooses to speak to her sister, not to Darrow. With a noose around her neck, she turns to Darrow and mouths her final command. Live for more. Then she shouts, break the chains, a cry of revolution. Darrow, grief-stricken, pulls on her legs to expedite her suffering. That night, driven by rage and love, he returns to cut her body down. His uncle Nero catches him and warns him not to throw his life away. But Darrow won't be swayed. With help from his uncle, who mentions someone named Dancer, he carries Io's body through the tunnels and buries her beneath a tree in the garden that she showed him. When he returns to the township, he is arrested. The punishment for burying a body against society law is death. Before his hanging, Darrow requests to hear Io's last words. He is told by Io's sister that she said she loved him. He knows it's a lie. Then the noose tightens. His uncle is the one chosen to pull his legs to end it. He winks at Darrow before he does. Part 2, Reborn. Darrow wakes up in darkness, buried alive. He claws his way out of the earth, gasping into the open air. He realizes he wasn't executed. He was drugged. His uncle had saved him. A vehicle arrives. Men in stylized masks pull him into a tumbler and drive into the night. Among them are Harmony and Ralph, members of the Sons of Ares. They call him Lazarus, the one who rose from the dead. They say they have plans for him, a mission. Darrow is brought to a warehouse where he meets Dancer, a hardened but handsome man with pit viper scars and a left arm with nerve damage. He leads a small group of Reds, Harmony the only woman among them. Darrow demands answers. Why didn't they save Io? Harmony calls her a martyr. Dancer promises justice. Darrow learns that his uncle was one of them all along, and he had been protecting Darrow, hiding his potential and waiting for the right time. Dancer says they will play a game, and if Darrow wins, then he will show him something very few Reds have ever seen before. There is a bowl containing 2 cards. On one is the symbol of the Reaper's scythe, and the other is a lamb. He has to find the lamb to win. Darrow can tell there is more to it than he is saying, and that the game itself is a test. He picks a card and quickly chews and swallows it before pulling the second and showing it is a scythe, declaring himself the winner. But he knows both cards were scythe cards and that it was a test. Then Dancer shows him the truth of the society, the conquering, the nuking of Rhea, the oppression of colors. Io's death wasn't in vain. Her song spread across Mars. To the Reds, she is known as Persephone. When asked what he wants, Darrow answers plainly, to kill Augustus. Dancer tells him to dream bigger. They ascend in a lift, and for the first time, Darrow sees sunlight, not artificial, but real. They emerge in a city teeming with life, color, and architecture. Mars is already terraformed, and it has been for generations. Dancer reveals the ultimate deception. The Reds were lied to. While they toiled underground thinking they were pioneers, the other colors have lived in luxury on the surface. The story of the future of Mars was a myth. The society never planned to elevate the Reds. They were tools, disposable. Darrow's belief shatters. He demands to know his role. Darrow is told his mission: infiltrate the golds from within, become one of them, and destroy them at their core. The path to do so is madness. He must undergo a transformation to become a gold, physically, mentally, and culturally. It's been attempted before, 97 have failed. They bring him to Mickey, a carver, an artist of flesh and bone, flamboyant and brilliant. Mickey is skeptical. The golds are engineered to be gods. Altering a red into a gold, nearly impossible. But when he sees what's in the box, 2 golden sigils, he understands the stakes. They want to create a gold from the inside out, to pass as one, rise as one, and eventually destroy them as one. Darrow agrees. He will be reborn. Mickey tells them that it isn't possible. that the wings are linked to the DNA of the person they belong to, and the golds have markings in their skulls as well as data chips attached to their brains. Then there are numerous other things to do, including tracking devices and other things. But Dancer and Harmony press on. They want Darrow to go beyond the transformation, enter the Institute, rise as a peerless guard, and ultimately climb to the highest ranks of Gold Society. Mickey isn't convinced Darrow will survive the Institute. It's not school, it's a blood sport. But as they argue, Darrow quietly solves a complex puzzle Mickey had idly been toying with. The jester silences the room, and Mickey begins to believe. The process begins. Pain is Darrow's world. His hands are branded with golden sigils. Data chips are embedded. Bones are reforged, thicker, harder, unbreakable. Golds have skeletons 5 times denser than a red's. Darrow's heart even stops once during the transformation. He falls into a coma, slipping between agony and nightmares. Weeks later, he wakes, barely alive but no longer the same. Every day he is tested, physically tortured into strength. He must learn to walk again, then run, then fight. His old body's gone, and the new one feels like a cage of muscle and metal. Mickey speaks to him each night, revealing pieces of himself. Raised in a strange traveling culture called the Grove, Mickey became an artist of biology, carving the visions from his fevered childhood dreams. He can even tell Darrow was once bitten by a pit viper. It's why his heart was always so strong, why he survived. Harmony begins training him in a machine called a concentractioner, where every movement meets resistance. Bit by bit, he grows into the frame of a gold. The physical changes aren't enough. Darrow must become someone else entirely. He meets Mateo, a pink, a refined, elegant sex worker, trained to serve high society. Mateo begins refining Darrow's speech, posture, table manners, and etiquette. He teaches him how to walk like a gold, talk like one, and eat like one. They bleach his skin, burn away his hair follicles, and alter his voice. Dancer wants to rename him Caius Au Andromedus, but Darrow insists on keeping his own name. Darrow Au Andromedus will be the sole survivor of a tragic shipping accident that claimed his wealthy asteroid-born family. He inherits their debts and their title. Mateo warns that any trace of his red origins, especially his slang, will betray him. Darrow must bury his past if he wants to avenge it. Darrow learns to dance from Mateo, but not like the Reds, whose dances meant defiance. He learns the dance of courtship and prestige, the poised and practiced steps of a gold. Mateo is amazed at how naturally Darrow picks it up. His name is officially changed in the records, hacked in by the Sons of Ares. He practices horse riding, though his first attempt ends in disaster. The pony bolts and he tumbles off. He's mocked by a beautiful golden-haired girl who tells him to stick to the city. He doesn't know it yet, but her name is Virginia. She'll matter more than he can imagine. 2 months after beginning mental training, Darrow faces the admissions test for the Institute. He must pass on merit. No faking, no help. The room is filled with 70 golds, each bred for intellect and dominance. One girl annoys him by tapping her stylus, so he simply steals it from her. A nearby boy watches, amused. Cassius Albolona. Cassius introduces himself and invites Darrow to join him afterwards. Darrow declines. Cassius is the son of a powerful imperator, from a family locked in a blood feud with the archgovernor's house. Political rivalries already swirl around Darrow, whether he wants them or not. The tests push him to the limit. Holding breath, enduring freezing cold, surviving extreme heat. It's brutal, but he holds his own. In the locker room afterwards, he hears someone whistling Eo's forbidden tune. It's the same golden-haired girl from the horse field. She blushed at his nudity, and he blushed too. A moment of shared humanity, even in a world of mass. Darrow learns that Mars alone has over 1,000 cities, each ruled by a governor, all beneath the arch-governor. When he asks Mateo about the Institute, he learns that graduates fall into 3 categories: peerless scarred, graduates, and the shamed. Only the peerless rise to true power. No one knows exactly how they're chosen, but Darrow intends to become one. Weeks pass. Then the results arrive. Darrow is summoned by a copper and 3 whites, representatives from the Board of Quality Control. It's standard procedure when a student scores far above average. They suspect cheating. He's hooked to a lie detector and interrogated. He passes. 4 weeks later, the official confirmation comes. He didn't cheat. 2 months later, his actual test score is released. He only missed 1 question. He's ready. Dancer gives him a gift. The knife ring once used to slice Darrow's finger, now reshaped into the sigil of Lykos and Lambda. Harmony shares her plans to care for Evie, the pink who took care of Darrow during his carving. Mateo gives him a necklace with the Andromeda sigil, designed to unfurl and hold a hidden Hamanthus blossom, a piece of Io. On the shuttle to the Institute, Darrow meets Julian, a friendly Gold who tells him his older brother is already there and certain to be Primus, the leader of the house. The Institute, Julian explains, has 12 houses, each named after a Roman god. Severo is a small bronze of a Gold who manages to insult Julian, who challenges him to a duel. Severo says they will do it after the passage, which he reveals is the very last test that many don't know about. He says that he does know, and he has inside knowledge. Part 3. War. Arriving at the Institute, the Golds gather in a grand marble square. Arch-Governor Nero Augustus, yes, that Augustus, stands before them. He preaches the gospel of gold, strength, superiority, survival of the fittest. He mocks the lower colors, mocks Io's rebellion. To him, she was just a girl who sang herself to death. Darrow burns with rage. He asked if he would like to be considered for the House of Apollo, his fabricated family's original house, but declines. He refuses to be boxed in by their expectations. Then comes the final test before the draft. In a simulated environment, he must retrieve a goblet from a guarded hill. He kills a wizard and enslaves a race of elves to win. Next, the proctors arrive. They're all peerless scarred, elite Golds. Each one leads a house and will soon select students in a draft. Among them is Fitchner, the proctor of House Mars, crude, unimpressed, and brutal. He punches Darrow in the face. When Darrow doesn't retaliate with a punch, but kicks him instead, Fitchner smirks. He likes it. During the draft, proctors vie for top students. A man and a woman both argue to claim Darrow. The man is Lorne Al-Arcos, the Rage Knight, Mars's greatest living warrior. He signals to Fitchner. Darrow is picked 10th out of 1,000. The new inductees are herded into the dining hall. Each house has a long table set with over 100 seats. Over each seat hovers a student's name. Darrow's name has 1 merit bar besides it, likely awarded for his high test scores. 5 bars and he'll be Primus. Cassius sits beside him, still impressed by the stolen stylus incident. He starts poking at Darrow's test results, trying to figure out how he did so well. Darrow deflects, playing the role of brilliant detached elite. Then Julian appears, and Darrow's stomach drops. Julian and Cassius are twins. No one knows what's coming. Darrow wakes, disoriented, being dragged from his room by masked strangers. They beat him and toss a bag over his head. He thinks he's been exposed, that the ruse is up. But he's not executed. He's thrown into a room, naked and alone. Then Julian is brought in. The door locks. Fitchner appears outside and explains the rules. Only one of you may leave. This is the passage. It's not theory or grades. It's survival and it's murder. Julian begs Darrow to walk away. He says he can live with the shame, but his family, all peerless scarred, will never forgive him if he fails. Darrow understands what's expected of him, what's required. They fight, and Darrow kills Julian. He cries over the body of the kind boy who never saw it coming. The door is unlocked and Darrow leaves, following the light up some stairs and down a tunnel. He makes it out of the tunnel and finds the others, those who won in their own fights. People like Roque and Antonia. Cassius will know that one among them killed his brother, and others will have lost friends and people they care about too. Severo also survived, which surprises Darrow. Cassius finds him and helps pop in his dislocated shoulder, then gets Darrow to do the same for his dislocated fingers. Cassius is sure Julian will arrive soon. Says that he was trained in the silent art of cravat. He asks Darrow who he had to fight, and Darrow lies. Not all who fought have returned. Priam is also missing, a student who isn't supposed to die. Fitchner talks to them, says they need to impress those who pick them for House Mars, as they can gain apprenticeships afterwards. If they manage to win, they could be picked to apprentice in the house or with an elder family. Darrow asks what they have to do to win. He tells them that they are in a valley in Valles Marineris. Each house has been given their own castle, and the next day they will all go to war against each other. They will need to dominate the other houses and gain control of the valley by any means necessary. Antonia asks, what's the reward for victory? Power, wealth, and prestige. Cassius suggests everyone share who they killed during the passage. He starts. He killed Nexus Al Silentus. No one else speaks. He wants to know who killed Julian. Darrow stays silent. Titus, loud and crude, begins to make himself known. Darrow hates him instantly. The war begins tomorrow, and Darrow knows he must win it all. The House Mars castle towers atop a sheer cliff, a grim fortress surrounded by untamed terrain. To the northwest lies the Deimos Mountains. To the southwest, Phobos Tower. The rivers Metis and Furor mark the eastern and western borders. Their stronghold is strategically vulnerable. Any enemy willing to cross the river can reach them. Above it all floats Olympus, the Proctor's airborne citadel. From there, the gods of this deadly game watch the mortal combat unfold. A dropship descends, delivering a feast near Phobos Tower. It's bait. Darrow sees that instantly. But he and Cassius seize the opportunity anyway. They reach the table, but it's a trap. House Ceres ambushes them. With only table legs for weapons, they charge headlong into the enemy. Darrow wrestles a sling blade from a foe and turns the tide. They take 5 Ceres students captive. Fitchner and the Ceres Proctor observe the skirmish from Olympus. Fitchner suspects treachery. The enemy was waiting, as it was tipped off. The Proctors are not supposed to interfere, but already the lines blur. As they flee back to their territory, girls on horseback give chase. One of them zaps Titus with a stun fist when he nearly kills a prisoner. He wets himself. Severo and Cassius laugh. Fitchner reminds them, this isn't about killing, this is about conquest, real war. They must subjugate, not slaughter. The path to victory runs through dominion. The House Mars standard is revealed, a banner bearing a howling wolf with a serpent coiled at its feet. It's not just a symbol, it's a weapon. When touched to a foe's forehead, it brands them as a slave, until another standard rewrites the mark. Severo enters the hall dragging a dead wolf, already skinned. He killed it with his bare hands. The message is clear, he's not to be underestimated. As the game begins, factions form. Titus insists no one should be lead until a Primus earns 5 bars. Antonio echoes him. For now, there is no leader, only rivals. The map flares to life as a horn sounds across the valley. The war has begun. Darrow and Cassius agree. If they're going to unite the house, they need to remove Titus. House Mars is fractured into 4 tribes. Antonia has the mid-drafters. Titus has high and mid-drafts. Cassius and Darrow have another tribe, with some high and mid-drafts, but mainly the low drafts. Severo has another. While scouting, Darrow and Cassius spot a surge of medbots descending from Olympus. Alongside the Proctors, something is happening. Their tribe has fire, thanks to Darrow's matches. No one else does. It makes them strong, but also a target. Severo's tribe is the smallest, but has the most information, because it's just him. Clad in wolfskin, he spies and survives in isolation. Roke proposes sharing fire with the other tribes. A strong house is a united house, he says. Darrow is unsure. He sets off to find Vixus, Titus's brutal second in command, but Titus finds him first. Darrow fights back hard, leaves Vixus bloodied. The seeds of civil war are sown. Titus's aggression escalates. He sends the tribe to hunt Darrow down. Darrow is cornered by 4 of Titus's students, but Quinn, graceful and fierce, saves him. Instead of uniting the house, Titus goes on a rampage. He raids House Ceres again, capturing more slaves. Cassius starts to suspect that Titus killed Julian in the passage. Then comes the horror. At the gates of House Ceres, Titus forces 4 slaves to beat a girl. Then he hides her under a blanket and lures the enemy with fake screams. When the enemy rushes to help, their horses trample the hidden girl to death. The message is clear. Titus doesn't just want to win, he wants to break his enemies. Screams echo from the castle. Titus is raping the women. Darrow can't ignore it any longer. He concocts a plan. First, they need more soldiers. He sends Quinn to make peace with Antonia at Deimos Tower. But Quinn doesn't return. When Darrow goes to find her, he learns the truth. Titus intercepted her, beat her, cut off her ear, and sent it back as a message. The message was meant for Darrow, but Cassius takes it personally. While the others sleep, he sneaks away to confront Titus. He returns hours later, bloody, bruised, and humiliated. Titus captured him, tied him up, and urinated on him in front of the men. Now it's war. Darrow tells Cassius they'll move forward with the plan. Cassius agrees on one condition. Titus is mine. Cassius and Darrow are far from the Mars castle when they spot the girl from earlier, the one who mocked Darrow during riding practice. She's alone on horseback and seems unaware of the trap being set. Cassius throws a pitchfork to bring down the horse, hoping to take it for themselves. The girl calls out a whistle just before she hits the ground, and suddenly 17 riders from the House Minerva emerge from the nearby woods. Caught off guard and outnumbered, Darrow and Cassius dive into a nearby lock, hiding underwater until fires signal that the next phase of their plan has begun. House Minerva are under the assumption that their house is weak, with no weapons. Mustang leaves with all of her men except 2 who are left behind to watch Darrow and Cassius. Darrow and Cassius are stuck in the water until they hear screams as the 2 men are attacked. They see a black wolf standing over their bodies. It is Severo in his wolf furs. They sent the Minervas to the castle so they can defeat Titus, but Severo snuck in first and stole the House Mars standard and buried it in the woods so they can't take it. Severo says they have to get leverage in order to get the Minervas out again once they take Titus down. He says they must steal the Minerva's standard. Using stolen horses, Darrow, Cassius, and Severo head to Minerva's stronghold. Severo overheard the password during his last infiltration, which gets them inside without suspicion. Once in, they destroy maps, set fires, and turn the castle into chaos. Darrow finds June, a girl known to be a good cook, and knocks her out to take with them. As the castle burns behind them, they escape with 6 horses and the stolen owl standard, knowing their trap worked. Darrow, Cassius, and Severo regroup at Phobos Tower with their allies and horses. They've now captured 8 total and hold the Minervan standard. They cross the bridge back to House Mars, where a scout will warn Mustang and her soldiers. Darrow marches visibly with the stolen standard in hand so that all can see House Mars has bested Minerva. Mustang comes to meet him along with Pax El Talamanos, a giant of a man from House Minerva. She is disgusted by what she found in the Mars castle, that they have been raping and murdering people. Severo sneaks up on Mustang's men and begins taking them down. The proctors come down to watch the drama unfold. The 2 houses begin to fight. Pax manages to get a hold of Darrow and squeezes him until he faints, but not before he hit Pax in the balls 4 times. After Darrow arrived, Roke arrived with the others and fought them off. Mustang and 6 of her men managed to retreat to the castle. They have captured 11 of Mustang's men and try to negotiate with Mustang by saying she can have them all back if she leaves the castle. She wants Titus, but they refuse. So instead, she demands they promise he will be punished for what he has done. Darrow questions if Mustang would care as much if Titus had raped a red girl instead. According to law, it doesn't count as rape unless the person has the sigil from an elder house. Mustang warns there is another in the game just like Darrow, known as the Jackal, who is smarter, crueler, and stronger than Darrow is. She tells Darrow he must evolve or he will lose to the Jackal. House Mars continues to splinter, its tribes divided by mistrust, power grabs, and the horror left behind by Titus. The proctors still haven't intervened, which Roque says is a test. They want to see how the students handle justice on their own. Darrow knows it's time to act. Titus can't be left in the cellar. His crimes demand judgment, but Cassius isn't the right person to deliver it. His credibility is damaged and his motives are personal. Darrow confronts Titus, who shows no remorse for what he's done. But in their conversation, Titus slips up and uses the word bloody damn, a slang term only Reds use. In that moment, Darrow realizes Titus is just like him, a Red who has been carved and sent to the Institute. Titus is dangerous, unstable, and driven only by vengeance. Dancer feared Darrow might become just like him. Darrow knows that keeping him alive would put the mission and every Red's future at risk. In the morning, Darrow drags Titus into the courtyard, listing out his crimes before the rest of House Mars. When no one contests the verdict, Darrow sentences him to death. Titus refuses to go quietly and demands a duel instead. Cassius immediately volunteers to fight him, motivated not only by Titus's crimes, but also by the lingering belief that Titus may have killed his brother Julian during the passage. Darrow agrees. Cassius kills Titus in a savage duel, stabbing him repeatedly while shouting Julian's name. It's a performance as much as a punishment, and while it frightens the house back into some semblance of order, it isn't justice. Roque tells Darrow as much, and though Darrow agrees, he knows the act served its purpose. Darrow earns his third bar of merit, inching closer to becoming Primus. Fitchner visits him and answers some of his questions. When asked why the proctors didn't intervene, Fitchner hints that the real question is why they didn't stop Cassius from killing Titus, suggesting that everything they do is part of a larger game. When Darrow touches Fitchner, he notices a pulse shield hidden beneath his clothes. There's more to Fitchner than he lets on. Darrow asks who the Jackal really is, and Fitchner answers plainly. He's the son of Arch-Governor Nero Augustus. With Titus gone, House Mars begins to rebuild. Darrow outlaws rape and reinforces rules of honor and justice. They store food, dig basins to collect water, and organize their resources. Cassius trains Darrow in cravat, the high form of gold martial arts. The wolves follow Severo because he killed their pack leader. Darrow puts him in charge of the dregs of House Mars. They each wear cloaks made from the fur of black wolves: Severo, Thistle, Screwface, Clown, Pebble, and Weed. Darrow knows they need allies. He targets House Diana next, hoping to form a pact. With Severo and Cassius, he travels to meet them under a flag of truce. They are stripped of weapons and blindfolded before being escorted into Diana's fortress. There, Darrow offers a deal. Help House Mars defeat Minerva, and afterwards, Mars will help Diana conquer House Ceres. Diana agrees. The next campaign is set. Part 4. Reaper. Darrow doesn't bother hiding his intent. He rides for Minerva openly, forcing them to prepare for direct assault. What they don't realize is that Severo and the Howlers are already hidden in the field, buried in the stomachs of dead horses left behind by earlier battles. Mustang meets him at the gate with packs and demands he pull his army back and burn the grass, clearly suspicious of an ambush. Darrow complies and the duel begins. He uses mud to blind Pax and take his axe, then knocks the giant to the ground. As the duel ends, Darrow gives the signal, a howl. Severo and the Howlers burst from their hiding places, storming the castle along with soldiers from House Diana. Mustang and her people are overwhelmed. She escapes into the woods, but the fortress is theirs. Darrow, while scouting for survivors, spots Mustang in the mud. Vixis is nearby, talking about how he'll break her if he finds her. Darrow pretends not to see her and leads Vixis away. It's a silent gesture, but it shows he still values her, perhaps more than he should. House Minerva has fallen, but House Diana betrays the alliance. They lock the Mars warriors out of the captured fortress, hoping to claim it for themselves. But Severo anticipated the betrayal. Hidden in the fortress's cellar with the Howlers, he sabotages the food and poisons the water, rendering the stronghold useless. After 4 days, Diana surrenders. They attempt to escape under cover of darkness but are captured. Tamara, the Primus of House Diana, dies in the process, thrown from her horse after someone cut her saddle. likely Tactus. The rest are maid slaves of House Mars. Cassius says he thinks of Roque and Darrow as his brothers now, and that he will recommend them to his father as he will need officers for his ships. They would be praetors for House Bologna, one of the most powerful families. That night, a girl named Lilith from the House Pluto arrives with a message from the Jackal. She offers Cassius a deal, 50 ion blades in exchange for Darrow. Cassius takes the pouch she gives him, but doesn't open it. Yet. Darrow earns his 5th merit bar. He will be named Primus. Roque tells Darrow that he's planning to kiss Leah, having decided he likes her now. Darrow tells him to take her somewhere special for it. Later that night, Leah wakes Darrow in a panic. She says Roque fell into a crevice and is badly injured. Darrow follows her, only to realize too late that it's a trap. Antonia, Vixis, and Cassandra are waiting. They threaten to kill Leah if he doesn't come out. He hides, and to his horror, they cut Leah's throat anyway. He stays hidden until morning. When he returns, Leah's body is all that remains. Roque is gone, and Darrow doesn't know if he's alive. Cassius finds him later and says Severo has found Roque, barely alive, but alive. On the way to check on him, Darrow notices Cassius is now carrying the 2 ion blades Lilith had given him. Cassius says that he knew Julian was meant to die because he wasn't smart in the way they wanted, but he was kind and empathetic. His family has been in a never-ending feud with the arch-governors. Julian was excited when he got accepted to the Institute, and the letter came with the governor's seal. It didn't make sense to Cassius or his other brothers because they never thought he would get accepted. Cassius knows Julian wouldn't have been in the bottom 1%, but they killed him because he was a Bologna. Cassius didn't look at what the Jackal gave him until he caught Severo trying to steal it. It was a hollow that showed Darrow killing his brother. Darrow notes the game is rigged, as the Jackal would have been given the hollow by his proctor. Darrow reveals to Cassius that the Jackal is the Arch-Governor's son and they are manipulating Cassius to get rid of Darrow for them. Darrow tells him they could defeat the Jackal together, but Cassius says they are no longer a we now, and that he knows what he did. Darrow realizes that Cassius is going to kill him, as he isn't good with an ion blade. They fight, but it isn't long before Cassius stabs him in his stomach. Cassius leaves him bleeding out and crying in the mud. Darrow wakes in darkness, disoriented and delirious. At first, he thinks Io has come for him, whispering her name in a haze of pain. But when his vision clears, he realizes it's Mustang who has saved him. She found him bleeding in the mud, brought him to a cave, and nursed him through his injuries. He learns that it has been 4 weeks since Cassius attacked him. In that time, Cassius has taken over House Mars and been named Primus. House Jupiter continues to grow in strength, and House Ceres remains locked away. As Darrow heals, Mustang stays by his side. They begin to rely on each other more, their bond strengthening in the cold wilderness. But soon Mustang falls ill. Darrow, afraid for her life, ventures out to hunt for food. When he returns to the cave, he finds 2 boys inside, one straddling Mustang, who stripped her to her underclothes and tied her up. Rage consumes him. He beats them savagely, but Mustang stops him before he can kill. They tie the boys up and light a fire, hoping others will find them. That night, Darrow sings Io's song to Mustang as she sleeps cuddled up beside him. With Mustang's condition worsening, Darrow knows he must find medicine. He dons a white wolf pelt and sets out, driven by desperation. In the woods, he encounters Fitchner. Darrow fires an arrow at him, testing if he's wearing a pulse shield. He is. Fitchner admits he's always armed, always protected. They talk, and Darrow accuses the proctors of helping the Jackal win. Fitchner confirms it. The Arch-Governor bribed them. Darrow realizes that the games are being rigged and the students' rings are actually nanocams. Everything has been recorded. Fitchner gives Darrow antibiotics for Mustang. Fitchner also gives Darrow a package, tells him he was told to tell Darrow that he has not been abandoned by all his friends. Inside the package is his Pegasus necklace with the hidden Hamanthus blossom. With Mustang on the mend, Darrow decides to recruit more allies. They light a fire to draw attention, and soon they are approached by a group of Oathbreakers, students who were enslaved but managed to escape. Their leader, Milia, the daughter of a Justicar named Gaius Autricus. Darrow tells him that he will not treat them as slaves. He removes their marks and offers them a place in his army. One by one they agree. Over the next week, 10 of them join him. The force under Darrow's command continues to grow. House Mars and House Jupiter are still the major players, and House Ceres remains dormant in their fortress. Darrow plans to cut off House Mars by ambushing their supply lines. He and Mustang block the Metis bridge with fallen trees, then wait in hiding. Darrow still feels Mustang's warmth when they sleep, and though the feelings between them deepen, he's haunted by the guilt over Io. When a detachment from House Mars arrives to clear the bridge, Darrow leads a surprise ambush. Among them is Pax. Darrow captures him and rebrands the Mars slaves as members of Minerva, growing his army even further. That night, Darrow sneaks into House Mars disguised in charcoal. A slave from Minerva helps him move through the castle undetected. He draws his sling blade symbol on every door, carves a skull into Cassius's chair, and leaves a blade behind. Outside, on the hill, the rest of his force lights a massive fire in the shape of his sling blade. The message is clear. The Reaper has returned. With the bridge secured and his army swelling, Darrow turns his attention to House Ceres. They still control much-needed grain and water, and Darrow knows they must fall. He gathers 24 soldiers and leads them on a stealth mission to take the castle by daylight, relying on surprise rather than stealth. They hide in the snow using a felled tree to build a makeshift ramp against the castle wall. At dawn, Darrow boosts Mustang and Milia up the wall first. They lower a rope for the others. Within minutes, they fight their way through the gate and open it, and take House Ceres by force. Once the stronghold is secured, Tactus challenges Darrow's authority in front of the others. Darrow warns him calmly but firmly that the insubordination has consequences. Later that night, Mustang wakes Darrow with bad news. Tactus was caught trying to rape a Ceres woman named Nyla. Mustang is furious, and Darrow must choose how to handle it. In the morning, he brings Tactus before the army. He asks Nyla what punishment she wants, but she says nothing could undo what happened. Darrow decides that justice must still be done. He orders Tactus to be whipped 20 times. When it's over, he hands the whip to Tactus and commands him to deliver the same punishment to himself. Tactus barely manages 5 lashes before collapsing. Darrow gives the whip to Pax, who starts again, but from the beginning. By the end, Darrow stands before his soldiers and declares that this law will apply to everyone. If anyone commits a crime against the weak, they will pay, and so will he. Now commanding 56 soldiers, more than half of them former slaves, Darrow begins organizing his force into units. He places Mustang in charge of 6 scout teams, each with a Ceres soldier and a comm unit. Their new mission, take down House Apollo. Along the way, they encounter the remains of Castle Juno, now under the control of House Jupiter. As they move through the region, they spot 3 enemy scouts, likely from House Pluto, the Jackal's house. Among them is a girl riding a silver horse. Severos suspects she's Lilith, the Jackal's agent. Soon after, a large force from Apollo appears. Darrow meets with their leader, Novus, who proposes an alliance to take down Pluto. Darrow pretends to agree. He returns to camp and deliberately camps near a frozen river. He knows Apollo's forces will try to cross it at night, believing Darrow's army is weak. They fall for the trap. The ice breaks beneath them, and Apollo's army is devastated. As the survivors scramble, Darrow's soldiers capture and enslave them. That night, Mustang notes that Darrow has stopped sleeping near her. When she asks why, he says it's because she's distracting. She laughs, but it's clear there's more between them than either wants to admit. Later, Tactus points out something disturbing. They found tracks in the snow that match Proctor grab boots. The Proctors have been following them, using ghost cloaks to stay hidden. The next day, they find all their horses are gone. It seems the Proctors had sabotaged them. The Proctors also damaged the pots they brought for cooking, as well as ruining the bread they took with them. Mustang finally asks why Cassius turned on him. He tells her the truth, that he was the one who killed Cassius's brother. She then tells him that she had a brother who died and that it changed her family. She assumes he told Cassius the truth, but he tells her the Proctors did by way of the Jackal, and she finally figures out that they are rigging the game to let the Archgovernor's son win. While relieving himself in the woods, Darrow hears Mustang call out to him, but something's off. She uses his name, not Reaper. It's a trap. He climbs a tree and waits. Proctor Apollo decloaks and pushes him from the branch. On the ground, a massive white bear, a genetically modified beast, charges him. Darrow lures the bear into a pit trap lined with spikes and manages to kill it, but then he's snared in a rope trap and left hanging for hours. Severo frees him and they head back to Darrow's camp together with the Howlers. Darrow notes Severo only has one eye and also has a limp. Severo gives Darrow back his sling blade. He took it where it was left in the mud and had it sharpened for him. Darrow tells him that Severo is a real friend, one that will last after the games have finished. Severo believed Darrow was taken by the jackal, as that was what Cassius told them. Severo went to go find him, and that is how he lost his eye. Only 4 houses now remain: Apollo, Venus, Mercury, and Pluto. When they return to camp, Darrow tells his army what happened, but only after they remove all their rings. He doesn't want the proctors to hear. Darrow splits his forces into 6 groups of 10. He leads one with the Howlers. The others are led by Pax, Mustang, Tactus, Milia, and Nyla. They begin dismantling House Apollo, cutting off supplies, destroying food, and enslaving survivors. They let the enemy escape to spread the word of the Reaper's wrath. Later, Proctor Apollo reappears and traps them in a jam field, isolating sound and signals. He warns Darrow to turn back. He offers wine and tells the others that Darrow's victory won't benefit them, as they're not from his original house. Darrow exposes Apollo's corruption and the cheating behind the game. Then he springs his trap. Severo is already at Apollo's castle. With no way to hear, Apollo didn't realize Severo was attacking until it was too late. As Darrow's army converges on the castle, he challenges Novus, Apollo's Primus, to single combat. He defeats him and quickly reclaims their standard, but one girl tries to flee with it, aided by Proctor Apollo, but Mustang hunts her down and brings it back. Afterwards, Darrow throws his stolen pole spear at the proctors and tells Jupiter he's coming for them next. Fitchner comes to speak to Darrow. He reveals that Apollo hasn't left Olympus. Mustang is there while they talk and only leaves after Fitchner insists and makes a weird jab about her name. Fitchner then gives Darrow back the knife ring he was given by Dancer. He tries to warn Darrow to stop and says there's a limit to how high people can go. People like Fitchner and his son and Darrow too. Darrow, at the mention of Fitchner having a child, realizes he resembles Severo. Fitchner is Severo's father. Darrow asks him to help, but he refuses. Says Darrow is already fallen into a trap, a girl's trap, but doesn't say who he means. Darrow pretends he's going to shake his hand to say goodbye, but he uses it to hold Fitchner in place so he can knock him out. Part 5. Rise. Darrow speaks to Mustang and tells her he's planning to go to House Jupiter next. They travel to the Jupiter Castle over 4 days and surround it. Most of Jupiter's forces are stuck on the far side of the river. On the 3rd day, the castle waves a white flag and sends out a boy named Lucian to speak to them. He claims there are only 7 of them inside and that they're starving. They agree to surrender on the condition that they won't be enslaved. Darrow accepts. They spend the night in the castle. Darrow orders everyone to get drunk on wine, except the 7 from Jupiter. As they celebrate, Darrow pulls Lucian aside. Mustang sees them talking, but he tells her to leave them alone. Darrow talks with Lucian for over an hour, testing him and watching him. Finally, Darrow asks to see Lucian's hand. At the same time, he pours out a pile of rings taken from every conquered house, all but one. He looks up to find Lucian watching him carefully. Darrow knows Lucian isn't from Jupiter. He's from Pluto. He's the jackal. Lucian tries to escape, but Darrow drives a dagger through his hand and pins it to the table. He introduces himself as the Reaper and announces to the room that he knows who Lucian really is. Darrow's soldiers, previously pretending to be drunk, now stand ready. He also knows the jackal has hidden men throughout the castle. Darrow gives the Howlers a signal. Severo has already found the secret army. The jackal mocks them, calling Severo's group toadstools. He offers the Howlers rewards and power if they betray Darrow. When that doesn't work, he turns to Darrow. He offers him victory and favor if he lets the jackal win, if he gives him the game. Darrow knows Dancer would want him to say yes. It would place him near the arch-governor, but he can't. He refuses to let the proctors win. Darrow leaves a second knife on the table and tells the jackal to prove he's worthy of his name. If he wants to leave, he'll have to cut off his own hand, just like a real jackal would. Darrow doesn't think he'll do it, but he does. Adris begins sawing through his wrist. Pax gives him an ion blade to make it easier. He cuts off his own hand and is allowed to leave. Darrow doesn't realize the proctors have returned. One of them throws a sonic detonator. While Darrow is distracted, the jackal stabs Pax in the neck with the ion blade. As the explosion goes off, Pax covers Darrow with his body, protecting him from the blast. The jackal stabs him again and again, trying to reach Darrow. When it's over, Pax is dead and the jackal is gone. Darrow chases after him with the howlers. They track him into the snowy mountains. Then Proctor Apollo appears, wearing his pulse shield and armed with a pulse fist. He launches Severo and 5 of the howlers down the mountain. Darrow fights back, stabbing Apollo in the head with his sword, but the shield holds. Apollo grabs him and flies into the air, telling Darrow they've captured Mustang and they'll ruin her if he doesn't surrender. As he's held in the air, Darrow realizes the pulse shield must be off. Otherwise, Apollo wouldn't be able to touch him. Apollo drops him, but Darrow is wearing Fitchner's grab boots. He stops his fall and activates his knife rings, striking Apollo in the eye socket, the one exposed weakness. Apollo dies. Darrow turns to the howlers. It's time to take Olympus. Darrow takes Apollo's armor, razor, helmet, pulse fist, shield, and grab boots. He gives Fitchner's gear to Severo, including the ghost cloak. Darrow confirms that he knows Fitchner is Severo's father. They use the grab boots to lift themselves and all the howlers to Olympus. Darrow is specifically looking for Jupiter. They find Venus first and tie her to her bed. Juno is found and subdued next. More of Darrow's army is arriving on Olympus to help them. The only proctors left behind are Minerva, Pluto, Mercury, and Jupiter. Jupiter finds them and begins a brutal fight. Darrow and Jupiter fall through a window and into a snowy mountain below. Darrow is wounded and weaponless. Jupiter boasts that the arch-governor will send obsidians and legates. Darrow says the drafters will see what they've done. Severo, still cloaked, sneaks in and wounds Jupiter. Darrow and Severo carry him back to Olympus. Darrow finds Mustang sedated, asleep in a room in Olympus. When Mustang wakes, he tells her everything, the jackal, the sabotage, the plan. He gives her a mission, go after the jackal and bring back the standard. She agrees, but asks if he trusts her. He says yes, then he kisses her. Severo has found the room where they broadcast the footage to the drafters, which runs on a 12-hour delay. Darrow tells him to curate what they will show. They bring Fitchner to Olympus. Darrow says that once Mustang defeats the jackal and they take House Mars, the game is over. Fitchner tells him it isn't. There are 3 reasons why. First, Cassius. He'll demand a duel to the death. Second, Darrow killed a proctor and has knowledge of all the cheating. That alone puts him in danger. Third, Mustang is the jackal's twin. She is Virginia Augustus, daughter of the arch-governor. Fitchner says her father kept her identity a secret to avoid assassination attempts. Cassius didn't know who she was, now Darrow does. He panics. He believes she may be working with the jackal. He heads to House Mars for reinforcements. They get to House Mars. Roke is still alive and so is Quinn and Pollux. Cassius is waiting for him. Roke tells Darrow that what Cassius did to him has got to him and that everyone found out what he did. Darrow finds Cassius and apologizes for Julian. Cassius tells him that he has won and then he gets up and sucks blood from a wound on his hand before spitting the blood in Darrow's face. He tells him that they have a blood feud and if they ever wind up in the same place again, they will not leave until one of them is dead. Mustang returns, and she says she's brought him a present. It is her brother, Adris Augustus, the jackal. She realizes that he thought she would betray him, but she has brought the jackal all tied up. Mustang doesn't blame his mistrust, but she doesn't view Adris as her brother. Her older brother was the only one she cared for, and he was killed by Carnus, one of Cassius's brothers. Dropships arrive on Olympus. Several heard the last words Darrow said to Apollo included bloody damn, but he deleted it from the footage they gave to the drafters, so several may know that Darrow is a Red, or at least suspect it. The Arch-Governor comes to speak with Darrow, says his wife begged him to help Atreus. Darrow makes it obvious he hid the fact that the Arch-Governor cheated when they edited the footage. Arch-Governor says he will look after Darrow on one condition. He tells him he has many enemies, most of them from the Bologna family. Tiberius Al Bologna has over 50 nieces and nephews and 9 children of his own, whereas his family is small. His best son was killed by Carnus. But if Darrow agrees to become a Lancer in the Arch-Governor's household, he will give him whatever he needs. He will get money, power, and position if he does that. Darrow is sure of the loyalty of his friends, but the Arch-Governor warns him that they will all have to go off into different places and join different families, and that the loyalty will not survive. He demands an answer to his proposition, making Darrow have to declare it in front of everyone. And if he does, he has to kneel before him and declare that he is forsaking his old family and joining the Arch-Governors. The book ends with Darrow declared a Lancer of House Augustus. And that's it for Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Tune in next time for Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.